your research is the work of, it reflects your work, your intellectual ideas, your effort. And it's important to try to keep as much control over that as you're able to do. And so to maintain the rights in your intellectual property is very important for that reason, to have control over your work and to have, it gives you not a complete measure of control, but a measure of control over your message. Intellectual property means having ownership and control over who can do what with your work, where it can be published, how it can be disseminated. And if you sign over intellectual property entirely, you're allowing whoever's funding you, if it's in the case of a funder, to decide how your work gets disseminated, where they disseminate it, and so forth, which can be really important. When I'm talking about, in that context, about intellectual property, I'm talking about vis-a-vis your funder. You may want to negotiate Creative Commons, a Creative Commons approach, which requires that the research, not the data, as different from the data, but whatever you ultimately wind up writing about your data becomes part of available to the public, and that the public has access to it and is able to do certain kinds of things with it, usually not to use it for commercial purposes. So that's a kind of control you could negotiate with respect to intellectual property. If you sign over intellectual property, copyright in your work to the funder, then chances are they'll want to maintain that for their commercial interests. So the risk of signing over your intellectual property is you don't have control over where it's disseminated, or perhaps even if it's disseminated, should the funder decide that they would prefer that your research findings don't see the light of day.